This podcast is brought to you by Radio 786.
Three South African media houses have come under scrutiny for failing to disclose that the trips to occupied Palestine were sponsored by the South African Jewish Board of Deputies. Now, the Sunday Times, the Citizen and news website BizNews acted in concert to hide that Sajbod sponsored journalist trips where they were tasked with so-called balanced reporting. In April and May this year, the publications published the articles titled Two Sides of a Tragedy and I Don't Believe We Pray to the Same God, the heartbreaks at the center of the Gaza conflict. The trip and its sponsorship has raised questions about ethical journalism, bribery and the undermining of South African intelligence. And to unpack this further, we're joined by Hassen Lorgat. He is a member of the South African BDS movement. Assalamu alaikum and welcome, Hassen.
Walaikum salam. And of course, as you know, I did this as a media activist, working with People's Media Consortium and others. Of course, I'm proudly a member of Palestinian solidarity movements like BDS,
Indeed, and we looked in at, I'm not surprised that this has happened. We know that Sajbod, other groups like the Zionist Friends of Israel. They do this all the time. But the concern here, of course, is how these media houses also try to hide that. I know Sunday Times has now come out saying, we forgot to mention that this was happening. So when we looked in, are we saying that our media and these media houses have been captured, or they've just been fed the wrong information in terms of what Sajbod is and what is actually happening in Palestine?
I think that the issue for me, it makes it easier for the listener to see it as a form of corruption, bribing and cajoling journalists to wear a brown envelope or stacks of 200 rands, as we've heard last week. This is the same. So maybe the envelopes came via plane tickets, luxury hotels, liquor, whatever, and of course driving you to do stories that are fit to print, that essentially will whitewash the genocide. Is extreme forms of corruption, because it undermines the confidence of the journalists. This is a mainstream paper we're talking about, right? We're not talking about a knock and drop in Lens or somewhere, right? That this is a mainstream paper, a paper of record, if you like, and that they have violated the code of ethics of the press council, right? And it's very, very clear. When they apologized eventually, I thought it insufficient, because the research that I've been doing, and with the support of friends, is that these houses were not just making a mistake individually. They interviewed similar people, if the same people, if not. They were on a junket, right? Against the press code. And they've all admitted that, right? By writing an apology. But why they don't want to go is to try and have a discussion with the public to determine what went wrong, how can we fix it. But I have actually said, I was being very modest by the time I wrote it. This is actually worse than the earlier inquiry that was chaired by Judge Setchell, because they were talking about brown envelopes, but not in the context of a genocide.
Yeah, indeed. And it's so interesting that I don't know if it's interesting, but it's shocking actually to say that a journalist would be duped in a way to say, come and see for yourself. Let's look at both sides. We're all about peace. When the contrary has been shown to us daily and in a very visceral form for the past almost 2 years now, the extent of that genocide.
Yeah. Khadija, I want to be fair to them, that I think the non-member BizNews of the press council was upfront. You open the article, they tell you this was sponsored. My only gripe with them is that they didn't say that it was alerted by a reader that failed to do this. They make it look like they had fixed it themselves, right? Secondly, the Citizen, in fairness to them, actually have a dedicated section where they say they're sorry. And I really want to be pleased with that. And in private conversation with some readers, the Citizen has actually pointed out that they won't be going on such trips anymore because they don't see both sides of the story, genuinely so. They can't interview whom they want. The Sunday Times, most influential, have been the most tardy. The editor there now, Sefara Makuru, is the chair of SANEF. And you want to tell me 4 years after the media inquiry into ethics and credibility that was hosted by SANEF, that was chaired by Judge Satchwell, that they do not know this is basic 101 journalism, that you do not fall into the trap, you do not take money, you do not take any favors to write favorable stories. They know that. And that is why I don't accept their story. I don't accept their story because, as I've argued in the article, collectively, they've got a 90 years experience at top level. Msomi and Sefara, let's say about 20 years. The citizen journalist, 20 years. And then the most experienced is Alec Hogg, which is about 30 odd years at SABC in various levels. 90 years collectively of high level journalism, and they don't know you don't take a gift or bribe or something like that. Clearly, this is no mistake. It's a fundamental crisis, and we need to make sure that the mainstream media takes it seriously.
And just speaking generally, I don't want to look specifically at what has been happening with regards to the Israeli occupation of Palestine, but are we perhaps also looking at the concern around media in general and journalists as well, who are very comfortable just regurgitating a press release or whatever is said at the press conference as that's what it is and not digging further, to the point now where a group like Sajbod can fund this kind of propaganda trip?
Yeah, I mean, there is, of course, the media houses under pressure. Anyone who comes and make it easier for them are looked upon as kind of saviors. They get a story done, etc. But it's a junket at the end of the day. Whether you're financially undercover. I mean, look at the Daily Maverick journalist, right?
Yeah.
He recorded the attempt to bribe him.
Yes.
How different is this, right? When you know it's basic journalism. In the document that Yuan Retief wrote for journalists, it's called Decoding the Code. He makes it very, very clear, right? It's a manual for them. They have it on their website, SANEF has it, right? The author of this says basically that when a mistake has been made, they must rectify it promptly in appropriate prominence. Yet, when you see what the Sunday Times does, in their apology, they put a photo of, if you like, the victims of October 7 only. When I was talking about there was no real balance. So clearly, they want to tell their backers, we are with you all along. We'll go down fighting for you. And this is bad. They're trying to minimize the harm that they've caused. They're trying to evade accountability. But at the back of my mind, there was always this fear that this is self-regulation, and self-regulation requires a higher standard. You know what is weird about it? Always the media regarded themselves as the fourth estate, checking on power.
Yeah.
What is amazing here, power, if you like, government, is on the right side of history by taking this case to the ICJ.
Yeah.
Media on the wrong side of history. That must make us think. If this was a government regulation, you'd have a different story. I'm not advocating for government regulation, but the press council and others exist so that they don't have to have government regulation. But they failed. The government is on the right side. Our government here has taken the right step. The media has been lagging and creating turmoil in society by obfuscating the news, keeping people ignorant. And it's so blatant, the number of children and women who are killed, the journalists who are killed daily, and there's no action.
Indeed, we're making these points as well as, of course, we're seeing that protest taking place outside St. George's Cathedral today. Cape Town's journalists are coming out in solidarity with journalists in Gaza. Hassen, Lorgat, shukran so much for your time, and shukran so much for the work that you do in your community, being that watchdog as well.
This podcast is brought to you by Radio 786.